The Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild, and Tears of the Kingdom have been at each other's throats as of late. At the time of writing this video, the game is quickly approaching its first anniversary. This game is still relatively fresh in most people's minds, yet I've been seeing quite a lot of people in the fanbase say that Breath of the Wild is the better game. Now, I know what you're thinking, and to be honest, I'm thinking it too. That being, I kind of agree. Okay, that's probably not what you're thinking, but when I see these takes, I can't help myself because I'm kind of in the same boat. Keyword kind of. I just find myself returning to Breath of the Wild every once in a while on a complete whim. Breath of the Wild is one of those very important games that I can say I grew up with. I was about to turn 13 years old when this game came out, as the Switch and the game launched exactly 1 week before my birthday, so this was quite a big deal to me. This game is special, and every time I return to it, I feel a very special warmth and magic that never left the Great Plateau. But when I look over at my shelf and see Tears of the Kingdom sitting right there next to my Switch, I just can't help but think, is there something wrong with me? I somehow find myself returning to Breath of the Wild more than I do Tears of the Kingdom. I find a stronger drive to go back to it, but the better game is right there. If I'm being completely honest, I have no idea why I think this way. I mean, come on, just look at it. Tears of the Kingdom is not simply Breath of the Wild, but more. It's an entirely new game with loads more content. An all new story, count them, 2 new maps, new abilities that make the weapon system far better, the whole 9 yards. Everything just feels better with Tears of the Kingdom. So why is it that I have a much easier time returning to Breath of the Wild than I would Tears of the Kingdom? My name is Dylonic, and today my goal is, well, hopefully finding a few answers to this very question, but I am curious. Which game do you like better, Tears or Breath of the Wild? Do let me know down in the comments below, but without further ado, let me get something out of the way first, just so no one can twist my words in the future. I love both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. I wholeheartedly believe that just about everything that Tears of the Kingdom does is a standout improvement over the base game of Breath of the Wild. It's just, keyword about. Just about. This video isn't supposed to put down the quality of either game, not at all. This video is just kind of a retrospective of sorts as I look back and reflect upon my time with these games. Nothing more, nothing less. But with that out of the way, let's discuss, shall we? Despite being a sequel to Breath of the Wild, I find it kind of difficult to compare the two as they feel like completely different games despite taking place right after one another. When you look at Tears of the Kingdom and immediately go back to Breath of the Wild, one of these games looks worse than the other, and spoiler alert, it's not Tears. Seeing this game makes Breath of the Wild look like an impressive tech demo of sorts, like this game is the final version of what they gave us in 2017. There were a ton, and I do mean a ton of complaints thrown around when Breath of the Wild was released, and one of them being that the world was pretty empty and needed a lot more of its space filled. I don't necessarily agree with the statement, but I do see where they're coming from. The only place I would consider empty is Hyrule Field, as there really isn't anything to do here besides grab the tower and fight guardians. Then again, just about every Hyrule Field in every 3D Zelda game has been boring and empty, but that's neither here nor there. Everywhere else, however, always has something hiding inside of it, whether it be an item, a Korok, a shrine, mostly Koroks. There's always something to do and find in this massive world. Now imagine what I said turned up to 11. Tears of the Kingdom absolutely fills the space that it's taking. Nintendo took that criticism very personally and decided to fill Tears of the Kingdom to the absolute brim. Not only did they fix the ground, making cave systems and all that, filling it up even more, they added sky islands and an entire massive underground map that was never advertised before the game released. This game is absolutely massive, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's go back in time a bit. Every mechanic Breath of the Wild brings to the table, Tears of the Kingdom either throws it out for something better or further expands upon said mechanic. With Breath of the Wild, we had the Sheikah abilities. Tears of the Kingdom, you get a magic hand because all the Sheikah tech just kind of, it just disappeared one day with no why did they do that? That's stupid. The relative structure of both Tears and Breath of the Wild are also relatively the same. Link wakes up at an unknown location to be guided around by an also unknown figure / ghost. As Link prepares for the trials ahead, he gains new abilities that are crucial to the game mechanics and they'll help him on his journey. Although I will say Tears of the Kingdom does switch it up a little bit by having a prologue section setting up the plot with Ganondorf awakening from his seal and whatnot, and I feel that this is actually a section where Tears of the Kingdom does something worse than Breath of the Wild. Sure, the beginning to the game and the Great Sky Islands proceeding are all still pretty good, it's just that I think Breath of the Wild's way of simply throwing you straight into the action just feels a lot lot better to me. You can go anywhere restricted within the Great Plateau and ignore everything. The freedom you have is impeccable. In Tears, the freedom's still kinda there, but it feels very forced, as the island is put together in a way where you're supposed to go through the island in a circle of sorts, so the game could give you the abilities in a set order. Once you leave the Ultra Hand Shrine, you continue forward and everything in your way revolves around that ability until you make it to the next shrine. Some puzzles won't even let you continue on the island without it. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, because I haven't actually tried this, but I know the third shrine is just on a cliff, just like the Stasis Shrine in Breath of the Wild, but in Tears' case, it's inaccessible if you were wanting to go there first rather than the shrine the game wants you to go to. The first shrine in Breath of the Wild, sure, King Rome Bosphoramos Hyrule tells you to go to the certain one, but the game doesn't actually force you to go to it, allowing for much more freedom than what Tears would allow. For a very casual player like my sister maybe, this is a great addition, and I will admit for those more complex mechanics in the game, maybe this guidance is a bit needed, but for more experienced players like myself and many others, it sticks out like a sore thumb and becomes even more apparent when you talk about it. But again, I could be completely wrong. I haven't actually gone out and tried this, so if I am wrong, let me know. I do think the story and setup is better in Tears of the Kingdom, but at the cost of damn good gameplay. In the prologue, it's just walk and talk for a solid 10 minutes or so, which I mean, I get it. It's very much needed as the story and stakes are a lot more grand, so having a little bit of time with Zelda before she's whisked away to the past it's warranted, I guess, but there's something that kind of takes away from the experience every time you want to replay the game again. You have to go through all this junk to get to the good stuff. And even then, once you do touch down on the ground, you're left without a very crucial item for a good while until you do a story mission, that being the paraglider. In Breath of the Wild, you get the paraglider the second you're finished with the Great Plateau, but here in Tears, there's a lot more to it for some reason. First, you gotta complete the Great Sky Island, then you gotta travel a bit to this fort in Hyrule Field, I'm sorry I forgot its name, then you gotta go even further to investigate Hyrule Castle, only to come back and then you get the paraglider. There's so many extra steps to getting to the point, it just feels loathsome. I don't like it. With Breath of the Wild, I can simply hop in and enjoy my time and forge a new route every time I play. Even though I think the overall story is better in Tears of the Kingdom, I do think Nintendo absolutely fumbled the way in which the story was told. Jesus Christ. So the way you find out about the story in Tears of the Kingdom, is it the same in Breath of the Wild? You go out and you collect memories from specific locations just to piece together what happened. I mean, this is a good idea in concept. In Breath of the Wild's case specifically, it's great for execution wise. It worked because from the very beginning we knew the outcome of the Great Calamity. You know, everyone died. That's really about it, and seeing the memories only served as added context as to what led everyone to their deaths. King Rome putting a lot of pressure on his daughter, forcing her to stop her research to fulfill her destiny, leaving him with a ton of regrets as he relayed to you. We actually got to see Zelda as a character and her struggles with fulfilling said destiny. These cutscenes work because all they really do is fill you in as how you got to where you currently are, ending with how Link got so mortally wounded he needed to sleep for 100 years. Tears of the Kingdom does the exact, oh my god, it does the exact same thing, but so much worse. By the way, this is gonna be your one and only warning for Tears of the Kingdom spoilers, so just click the timestamp in the description to fast forward. So the whole main quest of Tears of the Kingdom is to find Zelda, same as destroy Ganon in Breath of the Wild. This is the main quest that looms over you throughout the entire game. It is up to you to find out what happened to her. Why did she disappear? What happened? You aren't given a lick of context as to what happened and where she currently is. The only way you get to find out is in the memories. The memories are unlocked through a completely optional side quest. I know in the game it says main quest, but you could just completely gloss over this and ignore it. You're not forced to actively take in this part. You know what I mean. But in the middle of it, you do get to see where she ended up. And that's cool that she landed in the past. That's cool. We get to find out where she ended up. Something tells me I wasn't supposed to see this yet. So in the quest, Impa asked you to go to the Forgotten Temple, where you could now see the location of where every memory is. To the player who was going in blind, they're naturally going to hit up the closest ones. Just so happens that the closest tier is Sonia dying and Ganondorf getting the secret stone. We haven't even met Ganondorf yet in the context of the memories. I mean, yeah, the cutscene is dope, but did it have to be this close? Breath of the Wild worked because we knew the outcome of what happened. No matter what we saw in the memories, we knew where it was heading. Here? Nope! We're supposed to find Zelda and uncover the mystery of not only where she went, but Ganondorf as well. He was introduced in the beginning, so, you know, we always gotta figure out what he's doing, and you just skip past everything that happens. This is not the way of going about things. What Nintendo should have done was have the cutscenes play in order no matter what tier you go to. Like, were we supposed to figure out what happened and put the pieces together like in Breath of the Wild? If so, what is there to put together? I met a character, Hyrule seemed peaceful, and now Ganondorf is here, and all of a sudden he's killing people. Thanks, Nintendo. Yeah, if you couldn't tell, I'm quite miffed about the story. The biggest thing, I think Tears of the Kingdom fumbled because the story is pretty good, I'm actually not gonna lie. However, it's only good when you watch these memories in order, and don't even get me started on the story beyond the memories because, oh, it's so bad. Hey kid, do you like being told the same story 4 times in a row? No? Too bad. I mean, I do like the stories that go on with these current characters, Sidon and Tulin being my favorites, but holy crap, it's the same damn thing over and over again. It would be slightly more interesting if we got a different perspective on the imprisoning war or some new little bit of information each time it was told to us, but the only change we get is when we get told that Ganondorf was a Gerudo, like, gee, thanks, I didn't know that. Also, something that I noticed while rewatching all of the memories in quick succession for this video is that most of the memories in Breath of the Wild are disconnected from one another. I mean, they do have an overarching story looming over them, but it isn't super urgent or anything. They're just kind of waiting for Calamity Ganon to show up so they can face him. This gives a lot of room, and pretty much, well, the only room for these characters to grow. Daruk, Rivali, Urbosa, and Mipha are all such charismatic characters with unique and memorable personalities. By the end of the game, including the story DLC, you come to love the group of champions as they quickly became some of the most iconic Zelda characters of all time, next to characters like Groose and Tetra. They even get more development in the prequel/alternate timeline in Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. I want to do a full video on this game someday because it has one of, if not the best story in any Zelda game, and I truly think it's underrated, but back to what I was saying. Oh yeah, remember the champions? The best characters? Well, they get thrown out for some of the most boring characters in the sequel. Daruk was my favorite champion, and I was quite unfavorable towards his son in Breath of the Wild, and when I envision a Goron leader, Darunia and Daruk are the number ones that come to mind, not this timid piece of garbage, I don't like him. The sages in Tears of the Kingdom are a pale imitation of what came before them. I know they obviously can't bring back the champions, but I still find the roster in Tears to just be hella weak. The only one I liked was Tulin. I would say Sidon, but he feels like a nothing burger in this game, I'm sorry. And his design got worse for some reason. I'm gonna gloss over these characters just because my feelings on Tears' story are strong enough to be its own video in the future, so I'll save more of my thoughts for then, but my points still stand. The only thing that I can say that the story executed well in Tears of the Kingdom is that Ganondorf is just the coolest son of a bitch. He is my favorite Zelda character, so I have a natural bias towards him, but he's just a menace in this game. Otherwise, the story is just lame. In Breath of the Wild, the world is as much of a character as any others you'll find in the game. The developers made sure that the world can and will tell a story, as you can pick up basically what happened 100 years prior without even knowing the full context of the story. While the world can feel empty at times, there's a sense of peace, calm in the world. When monsters aren't trying to attack you, when guardians aren't breathing down your neck, you can just walk the earth and take it all in. I feel this may be one of the biggest reasons I find myself coming back to the game. There's a sense of comfort in this world. While the world is broken, it's healing at the same time, and you can see that nature has started to reclaim its territory. This really isn't the main focus in Tears of the Kingdom, obviously, and I'm not saying it should be the case either, as the story these two tell are very different from one another, and that's 100% okay. It's just not okay when the story in it sucks. Again, thanks Nintendo. All I'm really saying is that in Breath of the Wild, I feel like I'm allowed to take my time, to explore everything and take in the beautiful sights. While in Tears of the Kingdom you can do those same things I just mentioned, the game urges you to go out and do your mission far more so than Breath of the Wild. While you're nudged in the right directions, you don't have to really do anything, and I love that. Distractions are what made these games so awesome in the first place, and I feel like that's both the biggest strength to Tears of the Kingdom and its biggest weakness. Tears of the Kingdom, God, I'm really tired of saying those names, is a big game, for lack of a better term. This game is massive, but not just massive, it's massive. There are 3 huge open maps to go out and explore, one map not even mentioned prior to the game's release. And not only are there more maps, but they just outright fixed the original by adding cave systems, and basically everything is somewhere. What I mean by that is there is something at least in every single corner of this world and then some, which is amazing. When I sat on the credits for the very first time of this game, I was just in awe. Not just because of how awesome and amazing that finale was, but how little I had actually scratched the surface of this game despite playing it for 60 plus hours at this point. After that, I had walked around the map a little bit more, did a side quest or 2, and then I just stopped. There were a few outside factors that had contributed to this, like I had purchased Pokemon Violet for a review I was making at the time, and I had a full-time job, so Tears of the Kingdom kinda got pushed over to the wayside, but when I did get the chance to go back into the game, I just didn't. The game, at least for me, was very hard to get back into. The only way I got back into it was collecting footage for this video. I just had a ton of fun exploring and messing around, but outside of recording for content, I haven't really gone back to the game at all. This is exactly what I mean when I say it's for better and for worse with this game. There's so much to it, which is awesome. But holy crap, there's too much. There's just too much. It's to the point where it just feels overwhelming, to the point where I boot up the game, walk around for a bit, and that's just all I do, because I don't know what to do. I've already defeated Ganondorf, so what more really needs to be done? I've played so much of the game up until that point, but even then there's still oh god, there's so much more to do, I just can't wrap my mind around it. If 120 shrines was too much in Breath of the Wild, well god, I have some news for you. Oh god, there's so many. Now, I get saying stuff like this out loud sounds absolutely ridiculous, especially when I say it out loud. I think I sound totally stupid. I'm complaining that a sequel to one of my favorite games of all time has more content. Like, I know I sound stupid, but someone out there has to get what I'm saying, right? And if you do get what I'm saying, make sure to like and subscribe. If I was still in school minding my own business, I probably would have beaten all the shrines out there. I mean, I got all the shrines in Breath of the Wild, so what's the problem here? Well, in addition to the 152 shrines in Tears of the Kingdom, you also need all of the light roots too, because why not? I feel like out of everything I could think of, this is the biggest thing, is why I return to Breath of the Wild more than I do Tears. Not because of nostalgia, probably, maybe. Not because I think it's a better game, it's just because I don't feel the same pressure. Again, I acknowledge, I totally understand that this is probably just a me thing, but in Tears, there's just so much stuff, and so many possibilities to the point where I just feel overwhelmed and too pressured to do it all. Which again, if I was a kid, this would be no problem. But in my adult years, I find it harder and harder to just be able to sit down and enjoy a game. That's why I find myself going back to older Sonic games nowadays, because I could just sit down and have a good time with them and not feel the pressure to constantly be advancing in the game. I never used to see the major appeal of comfy games such as Animal Crossing and the like, but I kind of see it now with all of this talk. Let me say this one more time for the people in the back. I love both of these games dearly. Playing Tears of the Kingdom for the first time was a magical experience, and so was Breath of the Wild. I didn't even mind the reused map because I was so excited to see the changes they had made to it. Both of these games are absolutely fantastic, and as I've said in the previous video, 3D Zeldas are all 9 out of 10 at minimums, and Tears is no different. It's just not a game I can slip back into as easily as other games like Breath of the Wild. I know AG Aonuma hates the old way of doing Zelda games, but honestly, I very much prefer the flow to them, regardless of how much I've been praising Breath of the Wild. I would like to see, like, every 5 or 6 years they release a new Breath of the Wild styled game, but in that meantime, I would also like to see them return to form like that. I don't want to see that formula completely abandoned. I mean, Ocarina of Time is just so goated, dude. But don't let me talking about this game deter you from your own thoughts and opinions, because I am very curious to know your thoughts. Again, which game do you prefer? Let me know down in the comments below. But otherwise, that's gonna do it for me today. If you liked what you saw, make sure to hit my friend subscribe, especially now more than ever, because I recently found out that a whopping 98.6% of you aren't subscribed to the channel. So once again, if you could hit that button for me, that would be much appreciated. And if you want to have an even bigger discussion, make sure to check out my Discord server down in the description. But otherwise, again, it's gonna be all for me today. I'll see y'all in the next video, everybody. Stay fresh.